Shalom, family and friends. Welcome back. In this video, we are continuing the investigation of the term used by Shaul or Paul, works of the law. What does it mean? In the previous video, we examined how this term is actually a reference to the doctrines of the Essenes. So let's continue and find out how Shaul or Paul is using this term in his letters. Galatians chapter 2. But when Kepha or Peter was come to Antioch, I withstood him to the face, because he was to be blamed. For before that certain came from Jacob or James, he did eat with the Gentiles, but when they were come, he withdrew and separated himself, fearing them which were of the circumcision. And the other Yahudim or Judeans dissembled likewise with him, insomuch that Barnabas also was carried away with their dissimulation. But when I saw that they walked not uprightly according to the truth of the gospel, I said unto Kepha before them all, if you, being a Judean or Yehudi, live after the manner of the Gentiles, and not as do the Yahudim or Judeans, why compel you the Gentiles to live as do the Yahudim? So again, a person reading this 2,000 years after the fact, and of course translated by non-Israelites, not understanding what is going on here, is easy to misconstrue the situation. We have to understand that long into antiquity, from the giving of the Torah to Moshe at Mount Sinai, Yahuwah commanded that there is one Torah for the Israelite and for the stranger that lives among them. And from that time there were what is called in the Bible proselytes. A proselyte is a foreigner, a non-Israelite that is converted to the ways of the Torah. So these Gentiles that Shaul or Paul is talking about here are not foreign converts. These are not proselytes. These Gentiles are Israelites from the northern kingdom, from the house of Yeshurun, that are converting back to or renewing the covenant. So in the terms of the first century, the Yahudim or the Judeans were called the circumcision, and the Gentiles, the Israelites from the exile, the Israelites that have been divorced from the covenant, were called the uncircumcision. They were scattered among the Gentiles. We, who are Yehudi or Judeans by nature, and not sinners of the Gentiles, knowing that a man is not justified by works of the law, but by the faith of Yahushua HaMashiach, even we have believed in Yahushua HaMashiach, that we might be justified by the faith of Mashiach, and not by the works of the law. For by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified. But if, while we seek to be justified by Mashiach, we ourselves also are found sinners, is therefore Mashiach the minister of sin? Alim forbid. So let's unpack this. Knowing that no man is justified by works of the law. No man is justified before Yahuwah by doctrines of men, by traditions of men, but by the faith of Yahushua HaMashiach. What is the faith of Yahushua HaMashiach? What was his faith? How did he live? He obeyed all the laws and commandments of Yahuwah. So is Mashiach the minister of sin? Is Mashiach the minister of Torah breaking, of law breaking? Did Mashiach do away with the Torah? Alaim forbid. No. Yahushua taught obedience to the Torah. For if I build again the things which I destroyed, I make myself a transgressor. For I through the Torah am dead to the law, that I might live unto Alaim. I am crucified with Mashiach, nevertheless I live. Yet not I, but Mashiach lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of Alaim, who loved me and gave himself for me. I do not frustrate the grace of Alaim, for if righteousness come by the law, then Mashiach is dead in vain. So what is Shaul saying? If I build again the things which I destroyed, what was destroyed? Yahushua taught against the traditions of the elders, the commandments of men. So if that was destroyed, why am I going back to traditions of men? I made myself a transgressor. A transgressor of what? A transgressor of the Torah. Because if I followed the teachings of men nullify the Torah. For I through the Torah am dead to the law. So when I return to the commandments of Yahuwah, I turn away from the man-made traditions. I turn away from the doctrines of men. I am crucified with Mashiach. Nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Mashiach lives in me. So is Mashiach lawless? Did Mashiach do away with the Torah? If Mashiach lives in us, that would mean that we would live just as Mashiach lived. Mashiach lived total obedience to the commandments of Yahuwah. If you do not obey the commandments of Yahuwah, how can you say that Mashiach lives in you? Because that is not the character of Yahushua. Yahushua is not lawless. Yahushua is not a Torah breaker. Yahushua is not disobedient to his Father. The life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of Alaim. What was the faith of the Son of Alaim? What was the faith of Yahushua? His faith was in Yahuwah, his Father. His faith was to do his will. His faith was to obey his commandments. For if righteousness come by the law, then Mashiach is dead in vain. If righteousness could come by the doctrines of men, by the teachings of men, Mashiach died for no reason. O foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you that you should not obey the truth? Before whose eyes Yahushua HaMashiach has been evidently set forth, crucified among you. What is truth? The Torah of Yahuwah is truth. This only would I learn of you. Received you the Spirit by the works of the law, or by the hearing of faith? Are you so foolish? Having begun in the Spirit, are you now made perfect by the flesh? So we understand that all the scriptures were given by inspiration of Elohim, by the Spirit of Yahuwah. When Moshe and all the prophets wrote, they were writing by the Spirit of Yahuwah. So, do we receive the Spirit by the works of the law? Do we receive the Spirit by the commandments of men, by the doctrines of men, by man-made philosophies, or by hearing of faith, hearing the Torah? Let's look at Paul's other letter, Romans chapter 10. So then faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of Elohim. What is the word of Elohim? The Torah and the prophets. Having begun in the Spirit, are you now made perfect by the flesh? Having begun to return to the Torah, are we now made perfect by flesh, by the teachings of men? No. Have you suffered so many things in vain? If it be yet in vain. He therefore that ministers to you the Spirit, and works miracles among you, does he it by the works of the law, or by the hearing of faith? So the person who works by the Spirit, does he work by the works of the law, by the doctrines of man, or by the hearing of faith, by obeying the Torah, the laws and commandments of Yahuwah? Does the Spirit of Yahuwah lead us to follow the commandments of man-made rules? Or does the Spirit of Yahuwah lead us to obey Yahuwah? Even as Abraham believed Elohim, and it was counted to him for righteousness, know you therefore that they which are of faith, the same are the children of Abraham. And the scripture, foreseeing that Elohim would justify the heathen through faith, preached before the gospel unto Abraham, saying, in these shall all nations be blessed. So then they which be of faith are blessed with faithful Abraham. So what is faith? Abraham believed Elohim and was counted to him as righteousness. What is faith? Faith is to obey the words of Yahuwah. When our father Abraham obeyed, not just believe mentally, it's not just mental assent, but his belief moved into action. That is faith. Faith is belief in action. This is the Hebrew concept of faith. For as many as are of the works of the law are under the curse, for it is written, cursed is everyone that continues not in all things which are written in the book of the Torah to do them. Deuteronomy or Devarim chapter 27. Cursed be he that confirms not all the words of this Torah to do them, and all the people shall say, Amen. So we see that Shaul is constantly quoting the Torah. So how can he be teaching that the Torah is done away with? That is not what he's teaching. For as many as are of the works of the law, the works of man-made theology, of man-made doctrines, of the traditions, are under the curse, because the philosophies of man, the religious traditions, teaches us to disobey the Torah of Yahuwah. But that no man is justified by law in sight of Elohim, it is evident, for the just shall live by faith. And the law is not of faith, but the man that does them shall live in them. Shaul is repeating things that he's quoting from the Torah. And he's contrasting obedience to man-made traditions from obedience to the commandments of Yahuwah. No man is justified by law. No man is justified by theology, man-made theology, in the sight of Elohim. For it is evident, the just shall live by faith. Faith in what? The just shall live by faith in Yahuwah. If you have faith in Yahuwah, you will obey his commandments. And the law is not of faith. The commandments of men, man-made philosophy, is not faith. But that no man is justified by the law in the sight of Elohim, it is evident, for the just shall live by faith. Habakkuk chapter 2. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. So again, a person who follows after man-made philosophy, by man-made religion, by the traditions of men, is not living according to faith, because Yahuwah gave his commandments to his people for their good. And if you have faith in him, you will obey the commandments that he gave. And the law is not of faith, but the man that does them shall live in them. Leviticus chapter 18. You shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, which if a man do, he shall live in them. I am Yahuwah. So again, we have to understand that the law here is not referring to the Torah. The law here in verse 12 is talking about the philosophies, the religion of man, the traditions of man. In other words, the traditions of man is not faith, true faith in Yahuwah. So you see in Leviticus, this is Yahuwah speaking. If a man do his commandments, he shall live, he shall have life. Now are we going to say that Yahuwah is a liar? Are we going to say that at some point of time Yahuwah just decided to change his mind? No, Yahuwah does not change, and his word, his commandments, is everlasting. Mashiach has redeemed us from the curse of the Torah, being made a curse for us. For it is written, cursed is everyone that hangs on a tree. That the blessing of Abraham might come to the Gentiles through Yahushua HaMashiach, that we might receive the promise of the Spirit through faith. Devarim or Deuteronomy chapter 28. But it shall come to pass, if you will not hearken unto the voice of Yahuwah your Elohim, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command you this day, that all these curses shall come upon you and overtake you. So Mashiach has come to redeem us from the curse of the Torah. He did not come to redeem us from the Torah, but the curse of the Torah. The curse of the Torah comes when we do not obey the Torah. Mashiach came to teach his people to return back to the Torah and the prophets, to return back to the covenant. When we return to the covenant, when we return to obedience to the laws and statutes and commandments of Yahuwah, we are redeemed from the curse, because the curse comes from breaking the Torah. The curse comes from disobedience. The curse comes from not obeying his commandments. For it is written, cursed is everyone that hangs on a tree. Deuteronomy chapter 21. And if a man has committed sin worthy of death, and he be put to death, and you hang him on a tree, his body shall not remain all night upon the tree, but you shall in any wise bury him that day. For he that is hanged is a curse of Elohim, that your land be not defiled, which Yahuwah Elohim gives you for an inheritance. So we see that Shaul is constantly quoting from the Torah. So how can Shaul be saying that the law is done away with? How can Shaul say that the Torah is no longer valid? That's not what Shaul is saying. In fact, Shaul is establishing, he's making firm the believer's faith in the commandments of Yahuwah, in the Torah of Yahuwah. That the blessing of Abraham might come to the Gentiles through Yahushua HaMashiach, that we might receive the promise of the Spirit through faith. Again, referencing Shaul's other letter, Romans chapter 9, who are Israelites, to whom pertain the adoption and the esteem and the covenants and the giving of the Torah and the service of Elohim and the promises. So according to Shaul, the promises are for Israel. So when he says that we might receive the promise of the Spirit through faith, the promise of the Spirit was given to the Israelites. Go to the prophets. Yahuwah spoke through his prophets that he would give his Spirit to the nation of Israel. So again, sometimes we get tripped up on this term Gentiles, but we have to understand how this term is used in context and who it's really referring to. Ezekiel chapter 11. And I will give them one heart, and I will put a new spirit within you. And I will take the stony heart out of their flesh, and will give them a heart of flesh, that they may walk in my statutes, and keep my ordinances, and do them, and they shall be my people, and I will be their Elohim. So again, the promise of the Spirit through faith. So Yahuwah spoke through the prophet Ezekiel that he would put a new spirit within us that would cause us to obey his Torah. This spirit causes us to obey his statutes, his laws, and commandments. So if you say that you have the spirit of Yahuwah, and that spirit that you have is teaching you disobedience to laws and commandments, then you are antithesis to what Shaul taught, you're an antithesis to what the prophets taught, you're antithesis to what Yahuwah promised. Ezekiel chapter 36. Therefore say unto the house of Yasharal, thus says Adonai Yahuwah, I do not this for your sakes, O house of Yasharal, but for my set-apart name's sake, which you have profaned among the heathen where you went. Again, those scattered among the Gentiles. A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you, and I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you shall keep my judgments and do them. So again, the promise of the Spirit was to the Israelites. And the gift of the Spirit is to enable us to completely obey the Torah, to walk in all the laws and commandments of Yahuwah. The law is not done away with according to the Bible. Yoel or Joel chapter 2. And you shall know that I am in the midst of Yasharal, and that I am Yahuwah your Elohim, and none else. My people shall never be ashamed. And it shall come to pass afterward, that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions. And also upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit. So again, the Spirit was a promise to Israel. This was not something that was promised that Yahuwah would do away with his law. Nowhere do you find this in the Torah or the prophets. Nowhere do you find this in the teachings of Yahushua HaMashiach. It is a consistent message from Genesis to Revelation that those that believe in Yahuwah are obedient to his commandments. Review questions. What are the works of the law? What is the law of faith? Does the Spirit lead us to disobey the Torah? Is the Torah done away with? Was Mashiach a Torah breaker? Does Mashiach live in a person that disobeys the Torah? What are some ways that Paul's letters have been twisted to teach doctrines of lawlessness? Fear Elohim and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Bind up the testimony, seal the Torah among my disciples. Shalom, family. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to click the subscribe button. Like, comment, and share.